The South African Police Service says it's received more than 180,000 applications for just 5,500 training positions. So in the first 24 hours since the application portal opened, the SAPS says it got about 67,000 applications from across the country. Let's take this up now with Richard Mamabolo, spokesperson for policing union POPCRU. Richard, welcome to the SABC News Channel. What is your reading of these overwhelming numbers that have come in, so much so that even the SAPS portal struggled to keep up at some point?
Good evening to you and the viewers. Yes, indeed, we're quite excited about the fact that it gives broader accessibility to more younger people. And of course, it's cost effective since normally any applicant will have to go through processes of printing CVs and all these other documents, which would obviously need financial, which would have financial implications. And of course, again, this process, we believe that it brings about some form of transparency and reduces any form of corruption that would essentially be there. And of course, it's much more faster. But however, we're also worried about the fact that there are over 185,000 within the last 48 hours. This definitely sends a signal that there is a lot of high youth unemployment in the country. And for that, of course, such an initiative which only seeks to recruit around 5,500 young people, it then therefore means that there's a lot more of other young people who have found themselves unemployed. And of course, some of them do apply to these jobs on the basis that they are desperate, not on the basis that they want to become officers, of course. But however, we think that at least there is some form of transparency that is conducted in this new form of recruitment.
Right. And ultimately, as we know, this process has been opened up for about 5,500 trainee positions by the SAPS, and they've got limited resources, both financially and in terms of what they can do in welcoming warm bodies into the training centres. Is there enough room, perhaps at this point, to open it up further? Because the gap between the need of the SAPS at the moment and the desperation, perhaps, or the interest from people who want these positions is overwhelming.
Yeah, look, it depends on the budget of the SAPS. You remember that since the post-COVID era, there has been a drive to ensure that we recruit at least 10,000 new recruits into the SAPS on a year-to-year basis. Since we currently have a staff complement of around 170,000, we have two police, a population over 62 million. So there definitely is a need to increase the numbers on a regular basis, because as well, there are those who are already in the system who are resigning on a year-to-year basis. So in real fact, if we were to recruit 10,000 new recruits into the SAPS in the past year, you would have about 7,000 leaving the SAPS. So that would essentially mean that there's only a real increase of around 3,000. So it's quite important that this keeps continuing, and of course, we're hopeful that even in the next year, such a process will continue. It has been consistent, however, since 2022, and we think that it's quite something that we do appreciate to ensure that we capacitate the SAPS further.
And on that point, the reality is South Africa does need more police officers, right? Because the ratio per cop of one cop to the number of people in the size of the population is one that is very uneven.
Yes, indeed. According to the accepted ratios by the United Nations, it's supposed to be one police officer for every 220 citizens. Now, we're currently standing at one police to over 440 citizens. And that, of course, has led to many challenges that we normally speak about around the understaffing, the overwhelming as it relates to the job, the uneven allocation of resources as well. So those are some of the factors that definitely need to be addressed. So you do not only want to address the bodies, but you also want to address the resources that they would use to fight crime, because it's going to be important that we get more officers who do not have sufficient vehicles and are not evenly spread across different parts of the country to ensure that crime is combated.
Stand by for me, Richard, because at the beginning of the program, we had asked our viewers to let us know what they think, in fact, of this overwhelming number of applications for these 5,500 trainee positions in the SAPS. We now know more than 185,000 applications have been received. Let's see what people have been saying to us this evening. Let's bring up one or two of those comments in the interest of time. Mickey says unemployment is very high. Let other government departments employ people, especially those funded vacant positions. And Pule says this is indeed a spit in the face of the multitudes of young people in this country. National departments must introduce serious recruitment strategies. National Treasury must fund the programs. On the issue about National Treasury, Richard, let me come back to you and pick up on whether or not, in fact, we're dedicating enough money to resourcing the police service at a staffing level, because even in terms of skill, there have been concerns raised.
Look, there have been quite a number of concerns. I think even before COVID-19, we had been complaining about budget cuts from different ministries, not only within the police, but across all government departments. And that, of course, has had a lot of impact even within the security cluster, wherein there are lesser resources available to even hire more warrants within the Department of Correctional Services, officers as well. There have been a lot of budget cuts. And that, of course, creates an impression wherein different departments have to work on strained budgets. That obviously affects service delivery. And of course, the numbers that we are seeing now is a reflection of the challenges that we have generally in society. You know, we've been discussing matric pass rates earlier this year, and you would find that there are over 1 million young people who go through schooling, and yet when you get to matric, the number has been cut down by over 2/3. And out of those 2/3, only a few qualified to go to further education and training, leaving the rest unemployable and unemployed. So that trend will obviously continue if certain things are not changed. So we need some form of departmental effort in addressing some of these challenges around the unemployment.
Just on a separate issue, Richard, before I let you go, last week we saw the arrest of several members of crime intelligence, including the head. And now there are calls, in fact, for these 7 senior police officers who are accused of corruption to be suspended while their legal matter is going through the court system. Does POPCRU as a policing union support the call for their suspension?
Look, I think for us, the main point is that we are against any form of criminality, and wherever it happens, there definitely needs to be action taken. And that has obviously been demonstrated by the fact that the very same senior people who have been arrested by certain units within the SAPS. So it does show that as much as there might be wrong total elements within, there are also those who are committed to working and ensuring that we get rid of such elements. So I think for us, that is the main point really. As to whether there needs to be suspensions or not, we believe that there are obviously stipulated processes that need to be undertaken to actually determine what steps should be taken in line with the stipulated processes.
You don't think it would be counterproductive or problematic for them to continue reporting for duty, given the seriousness of the allegations against them, even if there's no conviction at this stage?
We think that the SAPS has got sufficient processes. Even the crime intelligence unit has sufficient processes to determine as to whether a person needs to be suspended, to what extent those processes are taken. And of course, we will encourage that all processes that are already stipulated are followed to the letter.
Richard Mamabolo, good to talk to you, spokesperson for POPCRU, the policing union in South Africa, one of, in fact, the country's policing unions.